times where they got open looks that good shooters will make you pay for, and then some other ones where I thought we were close to them. But I think their size too, it's deceiving when you're close to them, because they can shoot over you, and obviously for us to go long stretches, and miss open looks, can wears you down.
Welcome back, Hawks fans. It's your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for another Atlanta Hawks wrap up. A little late recording this, but I'm going to get it out to you guys. Got to talk about it. Hawks lose to the Brooklyn Nets 124-107 in a very disappointing and disheartening performance in Brooklyn. It was just one of those games where this was a big game. They could have gotten a game closer to being a potential 6 seed and getting up that high, and they completely did not show up. First quarter looked like they showed up, and then second and third quarters were just not good quarters. They were disasters for this team, and Brooklyn was able to take advantage of that, and they went on to really basically just blow the Hawks out in this game for the most part. First big shout out to Mikal Bridges. He had 42. He's been on fire with Brooklyn ever since he got traded there. He's really taken that next step since the trade. Really happy for him, showing the league that what he can do, playing at the level he's playing at, because he really torched the Hawks in Brooklyn. But going back to the Hawks, like I said, big game. Now, since you lost this game, Brooklyn has the tiebreaker, so you have to have a better record than Brooklyn, which seems unlikely unless they lose out and you win out. There was some encouraging things. DeJounte had a good start to this game again. He finished the game with 21 points, not a 15. He didn't have a bad game. It's just, it felt like the offense just didn't have the rhythm. And I've said this multiple times about this team, and this is the issue with this team, this current version of this team. If they are not scoring 120 plus points a game, they're not winning. If they have an offensive night, they're not going to win, because they're not good enough at all defensively to make it a grinded out ugly game. They're not capable of that. They haven't been able to show that, especially under Snyder. And so now, when the shots were not falling, Brooklyn had their shots falling. That was all she wrote. Trey had a terrible game. 3 of 12, 0-5 from 3, only 10 points. You got to get more out of your best player on your team. You got to. They had 16 come filling in for DeAndre Hunter. 16 is 7 and 2. Realistically, yeah, he didn't have the greatest 3-point shooting night, but realistically, he had a good game for what you would expect out of him in that situation. Collins, bad game tonight. Was missing 0-6 from 3. Hell looks stiff. 6-6 points and rebounds. They're just, the starters just really didn't really give you a lot. And that's been a constant issue all year long as well. It's just the starters are not playing that well. They're not. It's basically, like I told y'all, it's basically dependent on Trey and DeJounte going off. If not, the starters are just not giving you what you need. And especially in games like this, you need, that's the guys who you're closing with. That's the guys you start the game with. These are the guys that you say are our best 5. And they're not your best 5. Bench, again, had a pretty solid game. Like, Bogdanovich had 12, Okongwu had 12, and AJ had 11. So, you got 35 points from those 3 guys off the bench, and then Jalen Johnson gave you 6 in his return, so that's 41. And then Aaron Hall, so that's 41 just from major bench contributors. So bench did what they need to do. Bench does what they need to do on a daily basis. They give the Hawks consistently 30-40 points off the bench every game. And that's big, just because you need that production. So when you have a game like this where you lose like this, your bench gave you 40. I always say the starters need to give you at least an average of between 70 and 80 points. Because if your bench is giving you 30 to 80 points a game, not 30 to 80, 30 to 40 points a game. If they're giving you 30 to 40 points a game, then you got it. You got it. But they didn't get that tonight. They didn't get that tonight at all. And that's the biggest issue with the entire team right now, and just looking into it, man. Brooklyn shot 56% from the field. That's unexcusable in today's NBA. Yeah, guys are shooting great numbers, but 56, you're almost letting them score 60 for the entire game, and you're only shooting 43%. You can't really do anything. 22% from 3, and I think, again, this is again with Snyder's thing. Snyder wants to put up a bunch of threes, but this is But outside of the bench, this really isn't a great 3-point shooting team. Trey, because I remember this. I'm gonna say this too. I remember before the season they had traded Gallinari, they had traded Herter, and I was like, I'm concerned about the shooting on this team because they don't have a lot of snipers. They only have one sniper, which is Bogey, at the beginning of the season. And people were like, yes, we do. Hunter can hit threes. Trey can hit threes. John can hit threes. And I'm like, they can hit the three, but they're not snipers. They're not special 3-point specialists. That's not what they're known for. There's a difference. Of course, everybody can hit a three, but that's not what they're known for. That's not like if they're going to beat you, they're just going to beat you hitting threes. That's not what they're known for. Those guys were known for that. Even though Gallo had more of an offensive game, he was also a shooter. And these are the games you're missing. You put up 37 threes, you only make 22%. You can't really do too much with that. They got out, Nets had 10 more assists. Hawks won the rebounding battle, but it's just one of those things where you come into a game like this, and then this is a big issue. Snyder said after the game, hey, we competed. Big game, but we competed. And that tells you everything you need to know about him. He's just like, listen, I'm just evaluating. Like I said, this is technically year 0 for Snyder. Because, this isn't his team. This isn't his staff. This isn't what he wants. He's just making it work with what the pieces are. He's going to say, we're going to do as much as we can with what we have. And then once the offseason hits, changes are coming. And literally, I was thinking about this. I'm like, obviously, we have the lingering Jaylen Brown rumor, potentially with Jaylen kind of coming out, kind of saying he's not really happy playing in Boston. Not because of the team, but more because of the city of Boston itself. So people looking to see maybe is that a potential trade the Hawks can potentially monitor this offseason if Jaylen does want out. But in general, you would think they would move some of these guys this offseason in general because, like I said, you have Jalen Johnson, who I think Snyder likes. He's going into his 3rd year next year. He knows he needs to start playing legitimate minutes to try to show this front office extending, if possible. Obviously, they probably won't send everybody, but you want to show that I should be in a discussion to get a big contract when it's time for me to get paid. You got Okongwu, who's played really, really well this last few weeks. He's really showing that he may be ready to take that next step as a starting center in this league. You got AJ, who, under Snyder's been kind of, he has his games where he's off and he doesn't play, and then he has games where he's like 12, 11, 15. I think he'll be a bigger, like I said, if anything, he'll probably be 6th, 7th man next year for this team. He'll be a main rotation player who will get about 20 minutes a game to me. And then you have, you got guys like Bogey and them who they extended, who, I'm assuming he's a Quinn Snyder-like player. He's a shooter. So I feel like that's one reason why they kept him. But, you have big decisions coming up, but you got a lot of young players ready to step up. And so the question this offseason, I guess for me, to the Quinn in the front office is, are you going to allow them to step up? Because, I feel like the writing's on the wall with how the team has played. John, listen, appreciate John. I've been a big John Collins defender or whatever, because I felt like under Nate and under this team, what they would happen, people were mad at him for not producing the same numbers he did during the 20 and 10 seasons. But I also said, well, think about what changed. There's things that change, and then Nate was not going to run his offense through John and the guard and the forwards and the Capella. So yeah, he wasn't going to look as great. And then this year he's kind of fell off with shooting and things, and that's hurt him. But I think also it may be just good for him to get a fresh start. Capella, I think he's done great things. He has games where it's like, this is why he's on this team, but he also has games like tonight where he's just like, maybe time. I think that Capella has dealt with injuries, and I think it's just one of those every given nights you don't know how he's feeling or how he's going to come out. And then I think Hunter obviously is going to be the biggest question to me because they just gave him an extension before the season. So you, as a front office, it's not the best business to sign a guy to an extension and then trade him the next offseason. But it's a conversation that definitely probably will be had. I definitely see DeAndre's situation being if we can't find anybody better than DeAndre, we're not going to trade him. But if a guy like Jaylen Brown became available, then I definitely think that he would be thrown into trade talks for that for him. It really just depends on who's available. What do you have to me? That's kind of what I feel like what that will look like to me. So it'll be interesting. And then we have to see if they re-sign Bay this offseason. Again, I feel like he's like a Quinn Snyder-like player. He'll put up a bunch of shots. He can hit the three, guy, and like that. So, the Nets game was disappointing. You hate to see what you saw, and you really wish they played better and it was a better performance. But, they gotta, they're still doing a thing. I mean, they're still currently in the 8th spot. They're tied with Toronto, but the Bulls are also catching up again. So that's going to be big. Hawks do play the Mavericks Sunday. So that's a big, basically every game is a big game at this point, but that's obviously a big game for them. And then the Bulls coming to town on Tuesday. That's also a big game because Bulls are on your tail. And if Hawks lose Sunday and Bulls win again, now Bulls win Tuesday, the Hawks are going to drop as low as 10 potentially, especially if Toronto wins too. So, and that's obviously a 2-game to get into the postseason play-in for the Hawks if that happens. So, big games coming up. Hopefully, they put out a better performance than you had. I mean, come off against the top 4 seed in Cleveland, play a really good game. Come out against Brooklyn, then you lay an egg. It's just inconsistency. This is the most consistent team I think I've ever watched in my career of just watching this team because it's extremely inconsistent and it's extremely disappointing to see that. So hopefully they can figure some things out, bounce back. They've been on this win-loss thing, so technically we should beat Dallas the way we've been playing recently. And then the Bulls game is going to be like, oh god, this is the lost game. This is the game we don't need to lose. So we'll have to see what this team comes out and does on Sunday, man. We're gonna have to see because they definitely need to redeem themselves after tonight's performance. Hopefully Trey plays better. Trey's had a good season statistically, but he's had a lot of lows, I think, in games where he just kind of is not there. He doesn't make an impact. And I think that also hurts because it sucks that DeJounte now is playing better offensively. Now Trey's fallen off a cliff the last 2 games offensively. If you could just realistically, if we could just get both of these guys playing well at the exact same time, that would be so big for this team. And they just haven't been able to do that. And I don't know if that's just a matter of is it difficult for them to play together and feel like they can both be themselves in the backcourt. That may be something that could be addressed or talked about this offseason as well. I definitely expect Quinn to talk to all the guys, talk to Trey, talk to DeJounte, talk about things they need to do moving forward, talk about how we're going to do things. Obviously, he's going to bring his guys in there over the offseason to make sure they can try to execute whatever that is, and then we'll see what type of personnel changes they make, as well as systematic changes to rotations, playbook, whatever, to get this team back on the right track next season. Because like I said, this is like a year 0 evaluation year for Quinn. I know people thought coming in here, oh, we're gonna win. Clearly, we see players and certain roster construction, which I've said multiple times, has been an issue for this team, and so we're gonna see what they can do moving forward. But that's all I got for you guys. This is your Atlanta Hawks wrap up. It's your boy Bryce Lewis signing out.